This is Walter White, and if you've seen the show Breaking Bad, I think you'll agree with me that Walter has one of those dark villain arcs that slowly gets out of control. We see him go from a harmless man to using violence, manipulation and deception to protect his operation.
You're a drug dealer.
No, what? How? What?
Yet the audience still root for him throughout the show. This is because Walter isn't your typical drug dealer. We typically view drug dealers as immoral and unethical, yet when we see Walter, he is a man of code and somewhat good intentions. He doesn't enter the game to look cool or be a specific persona, he enters the game to strictly make as much money possible. And his journey was most definitely an interesting one to analyse, so that's why in this video I'm going to be discussing exactly how Walter White went from an ordinary school teacher to building a multi-million-dollar drug empire. I'll mainly focus on the financial side of the show, but do be aware of some spoilers. Walter White is your typical American dad, a hard-working chemistry teacher working from paycheck to paycheck.
I am an extremely overqualified high school chemistry teacher. When I can work, I make $43,700 per year.
And despite making $43,000 a year, he knew it wasn't enough for him. One day Walter is diagnosed with lung cancer and assumes he isn't going to live much longer.
Yes. Lung cancer. Inoperable.
He thinks about how he's going to make a boatload of money before he passes away for his family. With his expertise in chemistry, he decides to cook methamphetamine, a highly addictive drug that is more costly than other drugs. It also requires a precise recipe that Walter knew. The only issue was, imagine you had a kilogram of methamphetamine and you had to sell it. Where would you go? Or what would you do? And that was his first issue. He had to find someone that had some knowledge or connections to distribute the product. So one day whilst Walter and Hank, an important character who I'll get into later, on a DEA raid, he manages to track a former student of his, Jesse Pinkman.
Oh my God. Pinkman?
Where he would eventually propose an offer.
But you know the business. And I know the chemistry. I'm thinking maybe you and I could partner up.
With Walter's knowledge in the meth production and Jesse's knowledge in the drug game, they pair up to become a team, and this was the first step to the journey. Walter's scientific knowledge enables him to create meth with near-perfect purity, making it highly desirable to users.
Tight, yeah! And what did I say, man? This guy can cook!
And with Jesse's connections, he manages to sell a fraction of the first batch they ever made, where they would each get $1,300.
Is that all? $26,000?
No, that's $2,600. And your share is $13,000.
This was good money, but not to the extent that filled Walter's satisfaction, so they would change plans. Rather than selling to local consumers, they'll sell wholesales to main distributors.
We have to move our product in bulk, wholesale. Now, how do we do that?
What do you mean, to like a distributor?
Yes.
This is where they would meet up with a drug lord who went by Tuco, a Mexican drug kingpin and a high-level distributor. Walter exchanges his first major drug deal. However, things quickly go south as his partner Jesse would immediately get robbed and beaten up. He realizes it wasn't going to be as simple as he thought, and despite being the underdog, he seeks revenge and gets the money back that was robbed.
I'll give you your money.
Doing so gained Tuco's respect, and they managed to complete another deal, making Walter a total of $150,000. However, things shortly come to an end as Tuco is simply too unstable and chaotic, leading to his death in a shootout with Hank. Hank is Walter's brother-in-law, and he becomes an important character, as we see a deep contrast between the two characters throughout the show, as Walter, who is building the drug empire, and Hank, a DEA agent, are opposing enemies, yet Hank doesn't realise the man he had been hunting was right in front of him all along. Chapter 3: The Cartel. Jesse wanted out after Tuco's incident. He had been beaten up numerous times and had many near-death experiences, but Walter would do anything it takes to sell the remaining batch. This shows a lot about Walter. The fact that somebody had been shot and killed right in front of him for the product that he had been selling shows he doesn't care about the consequences of his actions. It also shows he's not the ordinary person we thought he was, as he seems quite unbothered and cared more about the money than the lives being lost. Walter needed to find a new connect. This is where we're introduced to Gustavo Fring, a professional and well-organised drug lord. But upon first impressions, Gus was not very impressed.
Partner was late, and he was high.
However, Walter wiggles his way through and pitches him a deal he cannot refuse.
How much product do you have on hand?
38 pounds. Ready to go at a moment's notice.
At this point, Walter had 38 pounds of meth, with a street value of $1.2 million. Gustavo and Walter come to an agreement where he buys all his product. However, he is told that his wife, Skylar, is about to give birth. With no time to spare, he makes the hard choice: make the $1.2 million or be there for the birth of his daughter. Walter walks home with an extra $1.2 million. Walter now prioritizes money over family, which defeats the purpose of his initial motive. After Gustavo buys Walter's product, he realizes the potential of his product and wanted Walter to work for him. However, his ultimate goal was to steal Walter's recipe. At first, Walter doesn't want to work with Gustavo.
The answer is still no. I have made a series of very bad decisions, and I cannot make another one.
But he manages to convince Walter to work on a 3-month basis for $3 million. Things were going well, and both Gustavo and Walter were making a lot of money. However, Walter's ambition led to the downfall of their success. Walter was not set to be a worker. He wanted to be known as a boss, Heisenberg. He was determined to assert more control over the operation and felt that he had deserved more financial compensation for his contributions. This led to conflicts and power struggles between the two characters, and eventually things would end. In addition, during this period of time, Hank is actively investigating in the meth trade, and problems are starting to trace closer to Walter. We see Walter go as far as purposely crashing his car and injuring both himself and Hank for the safety of the operation. Soon after, the money would destroy the family as Walter would become hungry for money and status. Walter has started all of this for his family, and now that he has all the money, all it's done is destroy all relationships around him. Chapter 5: The Takeover. After working with Gustavo, Walter left with around $3 million, which is more than enough to retire. Bear in mind, before this he had been making around $40,000 a year. However, it simply wasn't enough for Walter. He no longer cared about the money, it was about status and power. After Gustavo passes away, Walter is quick to solidify his position as the main figure in the drug trade, and essentially takes over Gus's reputation for producing high quality methamphetamine. He no longer has to share profits with Gus and is free to dictate terms to his distributors. This is where Walter makes a significant amount of money. Walter is now the kingpin. He partnered with several other people throughout the last few seasons of the show, such as Todd and Lydia, to expand his distribution network, and it was later revealed Walter White would have around $80 million.
How much is this?
I have no earthly idea. I truly don't. I just stack it up. Keep it dry, spray it for silverfish.
The fact that he didn't know how much money he was making shows he wasn't doing it for the money anymore, it was all for the thrill. Chapter 6: The Fall. Despite the financial gains, Walter's actions after Gustavo's death would also increase his exposure to risk. Being the kingpin means more people would have their eyes on the crown, and it was only a matter of time for Walter's fate too. He continues to stay in the game, and sooner or later the fall of Heisenberg came. However, it's also important to notice before he passes away, he donates his money to his son.
If, for any reason, that my children do not get this money, a kind of countdown will begin.
And gives Jesse $5 million simply out of guilt. He had fulfilled his duty of making money and becoming the man he filled for, but at what cost? Would his life be better if he had chosen to fight cancer and take the legitimate route? One thing's for certain, and that's Walter most definitely had regrets, as we see him plead for Hank's life and he was willing to pay every single dollar he had made.
$80 million? $80 million. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. Think about it. You can have any future that you want. Jack, 80 million. And all you've got to do is let him go.